Hello, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Katie Sill, and I'm an academic advisor at the University of Alaska Southeast Sitka Campus. Today's episode is a healthy mix of practical and academic information. I'm joined by Jasmine Shaw of the UAS Cooperative Extension Office. She and Associate Professor Kitty LaBounty explained to me what all the Cooperative Extension Office does for the Sitka community, and from there, Kitty and I talk about her lecture series and courses. It's a lot to unpack, so let's go ahead and get started.
Good morning. I'm Jasmine Shaw, and I work for the University of Alaska Fairbanks Cooperative Extension Service.
And my other guest is Professor Kitty LaBounty. Good morning, Kitty.
Good morning. My name is Katie LaBounty, and I'm an Associate Professor of Biology at the UAS Sitka Campus.
So let's start with Cooperative Extension. Jasmine, what is Cooperative Extension, and what do you guys do for the community?
Well, the Cooperative Extension Service is part of a nationwide network. All universities engage in research and teaching, but land-grant universities also have a third mission, which is extension, bringing practical information to people in the community. And so I run the local extension office here in Sitka. We provide non-formal education and learning activities through programs like Forage, the Master Gardeners program, publications, workshops, and hopefully get people research-based information and bring it directly to their lives to make positive changes.
So in another way, you could say that you are breaking down barriers to make this kind of information accessible to people beyond students at the university.
Exactly, yeah. Put research-based knowledge into an understandable and usable form.
Kitty, how do you participate with Jasmine's programs?
So I'm a volunteer with the Cooperative Extension, and I help with Forage programs, some of the gardening program pieces, some of the gathering wild foods programs, and I also been working with Jasmine on redeveloping the Master Gardener class here and some Master Gardener class workshops.
That sounds like a really great resource for our local community. What other kinds of services do you offer?
It's a public office. You can come and stop by. People often will come in or make an appointment to do pressure gauge testing every year. It's getting to that time of year, especially where people are thinking about canning fish and gathering berries, making jellies and jams and all that. And so that is a free service that we offer at the Extension office. I also do food safety tests. We're in cooperation with the DEC here in Sitka, and we provide training for anyone who needs to take that Certified Food Protection Manager certification. The Forage program is huge. That is the youth development program that is run not only here in Sitka, but across the nation. And we have a club open to all youth here in Sitka, ages 5 to 18. Summer camps coming up, 10 different ones that you can get involved in. Essentials of Entrepreneurship 101 for middle schoolers and high schoolers. We do a lot with wild foods and harvesting and living off the land, but anything from gardening to juggling to ceramics, woodworking, kind of the whole gamut with that youth development program. And Kitty's been helping with the gardening.
So one thing I wanted to add, and it's from my personal experience, is Jasmine not only has access to lots of publications that the Cooperative Extension has produced, she also has access to specialized agents in various parts of the state. So if you have a question about something, what she's had to chase down for me is like, what do I have to do to make sure I am canning my tomatoes and canning my tomato sauce in a safe way? And she's chased those things down. She's also chased things down with insect pest identification. So she has access to a whole fleet of people that are super helpful. So if listeners have questions about specific things, Jasmine can help.
Thank you, Kitty. That is true. People will bring insects in little jars into my office, and I can send them out to our specialist in Anchorage. They can get identified. I've gone and collected things myself and monitored different things around Sitka. And soil test interpretation is another one that people often call our office for, wanting to do a soil test and analyze what's going on in their garden, see if they need to do any amendment for the growing season.
I'm hearing a theme here in terms of like food being a central focus. Jasmine, is that something that you feel Sitka folks are really interested in? Is that why it's kind of moving in that direction?
Yes, Yes. Part of my job involves community needs assessment, and food security has always come up at things like the Health Summit or community forums here in Sitka as a concern, and across Alaska, not just in Sitka.
Now, this may seem like, a question with an obvious answer, but this is for both of you. We'll start with Kitty. Why is food scarcity or food security a hot topic for people in this community?
Well, I think probably the biggest one is we realize how far we are out here. And, because we have to ship everything here, it's more expensive. Part of the idea of being able to produce our own food, which guarantees a little bit of the quality, although we have great grocery stores, great co-op, we have things happening here, but people also want to provide some for themselves. We're in a great place, to be hunting, fishing, gathering wild foods, but people are also interested in gardening. Just to make sure you have that little something. It gives you a feeling of independence, and maybe will save you money. It's hard to say.
It's fresh in my mind, too, though. I was just part of a food cost survey, and we're doing this across Alaska, looking at grocery store prices here and how expensive food is. And so the next step in that project will be helping develop recipes for lower cost foods.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the upcoming summer camp series that you guys are doing?
Sure. There are actually 10 different summer camps that we have to different age groups on a variety of those topics, but we do have some specifically geared towards food. And the one that I am planning is called Friendly Foragers. And we're going to not only be gathering plants for food, but also for medicine and for self-care. So we'll make some seasonings, salve, and play around with eating some of these plants too.
And this is a question for both of you. We'll start with Kitty. How does one forage things responsibly?
I think one of the things people should think about when they're gathering plants in the wild is where are you gathering and how much of that thing are you gathering from one spot. So you want to be able to go back to a spot, and you don't want to dig it all up from one spot or cut it all off from one spot. Berries are a little bit different story, and we can, berries are kind of separate. If you're harvesting the berries, you're just picking the fruit. So you're not impacting the overall plant. So that's when I'm like, well, if I have a good bush that's covered with red huckleberries in my yard, I will pick all of them. That's fine. But, greens are a little bit different. You want to think about that, and seaweed's a little bit different. But I think berries kind of fall into that category of you're not hurting the plant. You can pick all the apples on the tree. You can pick all the blueberries. But when you're gathering greens and things like that, I really suggest people go to different places and think about, okay, if I cut off all this plant and dig up all the root, well, there won't be any next year. So that to me is part of it. The other thing is thinking about, is it okay for me to harvest here? You have to check with the National Park Service and with various parks and just make sure you're following the right rules. You're not on private property and things like that. And then the other thing I have people think about is, well, are you harvesting via dump? Are you harvesting via road? So some pretty practical common sense things, I think.
We've been talking a lot about reciprocity, gathering for others. Sharing can be the best part, and acknowledging our teachers, speaking the language, acknowledging the land, and gratitude as part of sustainable harvesting as well.
I think it's wonderful that you guys are providing this opportunity because that was one of the first things that I noticed when I moved to Sitka a couple of years ago is people out and about just popping out of bushes and surprising me and my mom being, what are they doing? I think they're picking berries.
But again, I try to think about, well, how many am I really going to use? I can pick berries for days, and I do share them and I trade them and do all sorts of things with them.
I heard before that you guys were doing research on the berries in a winter berry project. Can you tell us a little more about that, Jasmine?
Sure. Like Kitty said, everyone loves berries. That research came out of some concerns of the timing of when berries are ripening and the variability, people being less certain when to harvest and the shifting seasons and how those could affect when berries are available, both to people and to animals. And so it's a citizen science project that University of Alaska Fairbanks scientists have sent forth community volunteers to investigate across the state myself and Kitty picked up this project here in Sitka and monitored the crowberries and cranberries at the Raptor Center for 4 years. And out of that data are actually going to have 2 of the students present at a statewide conference on the research that we did on fruit retention in those species.
Kitty, you have something to add?
Well, I wanted to make sure that we talked about our adult workshops that are happening. When was it? We put together a Master Gardener class. And of course, our timing was impeccable. It was spring 2020. It was like, well, we didn't get to do that. So we've done some variations on that thing, partnered with other groups to have that online. And this year we went for having a few local workshops. We had a great and I think super successful seed starting workshop. We had a how to prune your apple tree workshop.
Yes, our last workshop on seed starting, one of the participants commented that this was the best thing that they had done since the pandemic, which just warmed my heart. It's nice that we can gather in safe ways a little bit more now.
Well, I'm glad we had the opportunity to learn more about that. I mean, that sounds like a lot of really useful and practical information.
Yeah, I'm very happy. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Yes. I was just going to say, I just want to thank Kitty especially for helping kind of revitalize the gardening community through the Extension Service. Since 2020, not only did we do that virtual Master Gardener class and 12 local Sitkans graduated out of that, we had a garden happy hour, virtual classes and gatherings that whole summer through the end of 2020, and then these workshops this year, which have been loads of fun. So thank you, Kitty, and I will have to leave you now, but I know Kitty has much more to talk about.
Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, Jasmine. Kitty, you're a very busy person. In addition to helping with the Cooperative Extension Office, you also help organize a lecture series at the university.
Yes, actually, it's called the Natural History Seminar Series, and it started, way back. Its roots are in 2007, actually over at Sheldon Jackson College, when that college was still in place, and I was teaching at both UAS and at Sheldon Jackson. And as that college closed, and I moved over, to UAS full-time, we kept it going. The goal of the seminar series was to have a publicly accessible, research speakers from all over, mostly focused on Alaska and things that are of local interest. So we've talked about earthquakes and volcanoes and, you name it, mountain goats. So we've had a few, most years since then, a couple a month during, the school year. Of course, I don't need to tell you that those didn't happen in quite the same way during, the fall of 2020 and the winter of 21 and this year. But I've been able to partner with the Evenings at Egan program. And then we've just started hosting our own again through Zoom. And the Natural History Seminars is co-sponsored by the Science Center and by UAS. So it's a nice partnership. And then I'm hoping next fall that we start having them in person again on campus. We have great facility for it.
And these are free lectures, right?
Totally free. Absolutely free. People of all ages are welcome. We've had, in the past, a lot of high school students and even younger, parents bring their younger children when the topic is of interest.
And it's not a big time commitment either, right?
It's not a huge time commitment. Usually I try to start them at 7 or 7:30 because I like to be able to get off work and have my dinner and then go to the lecture. That's kind of my own personal thing. And they're, maybe an hour, and you're not required to stay the whole time, right? But I've really enjoyed it. We had a talk just a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Gary Green talking about living along the Queen Charlotte Fault. That's us, right here in Sitka. So they're really interesting, and they're both locally relevant and compelling conversations.
Now, all of this that we've talked about today is in addition to your course load that you teach for degree-seeking students or non-degree-seeking students. Let's start with the maybe non-credit classes and work our way up to the more GER, general education classes.
Okay, so the other class I've taught, for lots and lots of years, I'm not going to say how many, is the annual mushroom identification workshop. And that's generally in late August or early September. Sometimes I run 2 sections depending on demand. And it's a pretty short time commitment. I usually have an evening lecture. Sometimes it's Thursday evening, sometimes it's Friday evening, and then 2 field trips. They're not all day field trips where we go out and gather, and learn how to identify mushrooms, which ones are safe for eating, which ones, maybe you don't want to fuss with those, but, give kind of some general pointers. And most folks are interested in what they can eat. So that tends to be the focus of the course. There's a couple of handfuls of fungi here, species-wise, that are very easily recognized. And so I kind of focus on making everyone comfortable recognizing those species. So, you learn how to differentiate what you want to eat from ones that might look similar but aren't quite right. So we spent a lot of time on that. That's the main focus of that course.
And I know this is a popular class, and I mean, let alone you've been invited to go to Wrangell to do a similar course for them, but I get people calling from out of state asking, when is the mushroom foraging class going to be offered? And can you give me a call when that mushroom foraging class is on the books so I can register? And I have to say, local people, first come, first serve kind of situation. It can be pretty competitive when the sign-up sheet opens up. So,
and if there is a lot of interest, I will try and schedule a second one. It ends up depending on how busy I am, with my other classes. But I do try to accommodate people. But I still hear from people who are like, oh, I've been meaning to take that every year. And I proudly can say that I have never had a class poisoning. So I'm feeling good about that.
Yeah, knock on wood there. We don't want to break that streak.
No, we're not going to break that streak. To this point, I should say, we have never had any problems.
So that's a class that you offer in the fall, but you also have another shorter class in the spring, Biology 107.
Right.
Let's touch on that briefly.
Okay, that is a 1-credit class learning how to identify the plants in Southeast Alaska. So we talk about the conifers, it's those evergreen trees that are all over the place, our other trees, our shrubs, the pretty flowers you're going to see on your walks, things you might eat. I try to go through quite a bit. We have hundreds of species, so I certainly don't cover all of them, but just to give people an introduction to that. I used to get to teach it hybrid, and by hybrid, I mean I have people in the room with me and people online. So I could have people, from Juneau or Ketchikan or wherever, but also people from Sitka. We're still online, but there's hope, again, that will change. And I'm still hoping I can do a short course sometime with that in May, June, base it a lot more on field trips. So it's fun. I mean, I love plants. I came up here as a botanist. That's what I did for the Forest Service eons ago.
And before we run up on time, I want to talk about one of my favorite courses that you offer. I recommend it to many students in need of a natural science GER. It's the Bio 104 class, Natural History of Alaska.
Yes, so that covers the whole state. It's a big topic. And by natural history, we talk about climate, we talk about geology, about plate tectonics. Basically, we kind of build Alaska from the ground up, so to speak. We cover how the geography was formed. And then we go through each of the main areas in the states. We talk about the boreal forests. We talk about the temperate rainforest. We talk about Arctic tundra. And then we also talk about the marine ecosystems and the freshwater ecosystems. And students get to spend their lab portion of this in a semester-long kind of directed observation project at a site. And I love this class. I mean, this is like totally up my alley. I love being outside. I love animals and birds and plants, and we talk about all of them.
Can you describe a little bit more that lab experience that students are getting? Because this class is online.
Yeah.
And it's not like what some people might think of a science lab with like a Bunsen burner and microscope.
Right. Science is also observational and collecting data, right? So you're not just having to, light things on fire and do things like that. But they pick a spot with my assistants in their community that they can access easily. And they visit there once a week and record, the date, the time, the weather, animals they see, what's going on with plants and things like that in their site. So they learn how to collect data about a spot. And by observing, I think they learn more about it.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Kitty, and thank you everyone for listening. If you need more information about some of the cooperative extension activities, you can find our contact information at uas.alaska.edu. Until next time, I'm Katie Sill.